It was supposed to be just another party, a typical night of fun and laughter. My little sister Lisa begged me to let her use the attic for her friends. She was so persistent. They wanted to try the old Ouija board our grandma left behind, a relic from another time. I didn't think much of it, they were just kids messing around, right? Just having some harmless fun. I was downstairs when I heard the first bang, a sound that echoed through the house. At first I thought it was part of their game. Then came the screams, piercing and real. I rushed upstairs and the air was icy cold, colder than it should have been. Lisa and her friends were huddled in the corner, eyes wide with terror, shaking uncontrollably. The planchette on the board was moving on its own, spelling out something we couldn't understand. I grabbed Lisa, but before we could leave, the light bulb exploded and the attic door slammed shut. We were trapped, unable to escape. Then we heard it, a low growl coming from the shadows, sending chills down our spines. One by one the candles blew out, plunging us into complete darkness. In the pitch darkness, Lisa whispered, "It's not a game anymore." Her voice trembling. We never went back to the attic, not after that night. That night we buried the Ouija board in the backyard, hoping to put an end to it. But sometimes I hear faint knocks from beneath the ground, reminding me of that terrifying night. College was boring sometimes. We were looking for a thrill when Matt found this ritual challenge online. Light a few candles, say some creepy words, it's all fake, right? We thought it was hilarious when the lights started flickering. Then the door slammed shut. Matt laughed it off, saying it was the wind, but then, we saw the shadows. They weren't ours. They moved on their own, crawling up the walls, twisting into impossible shapes. Matt screamed when his reflection in the mirror blinked at him. Something whispered his name from inside the closet. We ran out of the dorm, leaving everything behind. The next day, Matt moved out of campus, refusing to talk about what happened. But the mirror stayed, and I swear, sometimes it still looks like someone's watching. I was the leader of our group, always the one to take on dares, no matter how risky or foolish they seemed. That night we decided to summon a spirit in the woods, thinking it would be a thrilling adventure. We even brought props, candles, chalk, and a creepy chant we found online, hoping to make it as spooky as possible. It started as a joke. We lit the candles, drew the circle, and began chanting, laughing nervously. Then, the wind picked up. The flames turned blue, casting eerie shadows around us. "Is this part of the trick?" one of my friends asked, his voice trembling. But none of us were playing tricks. The forest fell silent, no crickets, no rustling leaves, just an eerie stillness. Then, from the darkness, we heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, and getting closer, echoing through the trees. We froze as a figure emerged, tall, cloaked, and faceless, moving silently towards us. My friend James screamed and bolted, but the figure followed him, gliding effortlessly. The rest of us ran too, leaving everything behind in our panic. When we finally regrouped, James was missing, and fear gripped us. We searched until dawn, but all we found was his flashlight still on, in the center of the circle we had drawn, flickering weakly. James came back 2 days later. He won't tell us what happened, no matter how much we ask. He just stares blankly, and mutters about the figure, his eyes filled with a haunting fear. After James returned, we knew we couldn't let this go. The fear in his eyes was something we had never seen before. The figure in the woods wasn't just a figment of our imagination. It was real, and it was haunting us. We needed to get rid of it. We had to find a way to banish this malevolent presence. Desperation led us to an old library where we found a dusty book on exorcisms. It was our only hope. None of us were experts, but we were out of options. We had to try something, anything. We gathered at my house, away from the woods, thinking it might be safer. We hoped it would be enough. We set up the living room with candles, salt, and everything the book suggested. We followed every instruction meticulously. James was there too, still silent, still haunted. His presence was a constant reminder of what we were up against. We began the ritual, chanting words we didn't fully understand. At first, nothing happened. Then the temperature dropped dramatically. Our breaths turned to visible puffs in the air. The room felt like a freezer. The candles flickered and went out one by one. Darkness enveloped us. The room plunged into darkness. Suddenly James started convulsing violently. He fell to the floor, his body contorting in unnatural ways. It was horrifying to watch. We tried to hold him down, but he was too strong. His strength was inhuman. His eyes rolled back, and he began speaking in a voice that wasn't his own. It was chilling, it was deep, guttural, and filled with malice. The voice seemed to echo in the room. The figure appeared again, this time inside my house. It was more terrifying than before. It stood in the corner, its presence suffocating. We could barely breathe. We tried to continue the chant, our voices trembling. Fear gripped us. But the figure moved closer, its faceless head turning towards each of us. Then the lights exploded with a deafening sound. Glass shards flew everywhere, cutting our skin. Panic set in. We screamed, abandoning the ritual, and ran out of the house. Our only thought was to escape. As we stumbled into the street, the door slammed shut behind us with a finality that chilled us to the bone. We looked back to see the figure standing at the window watching us. Its gaze was unrelenting. We knew then that it wasn't over. The nightmare had just begun. The spirit was still with us, and it wasn't going to leave easily. We had disturbed something far beyond our understanding. We had awakened something dark, something ancient. Its power was overwhelming, and now it was part of our lives. We had to find a way to survive its wrath. Some jokes aren't worth the risk. Think before you act. Stay safe.